People say, okay, they pop out twins. There's been reports of bison that's been in well-managed, well-fed hoods, it's popped out twins. But it ain't gonna happen under the conditions that we force all animals to live under. The conditions we force all animals to live under, it's tough. And they just are not gonna have the body reserve to carry 2 calves. And no, my mom's standing right here. Okay, so this is the good stuff. Now we'll get into the really good stuff and how this all works. We want our males at about 5 females for each of the mature males. Mature males being 3 years old and older. Mature females, 3 years old and older. We want about a 5 to 1 ratio, and we do that so that they don't fight. These guys that maintain a 50% population of males and females have a lot of fighting going on, a lot of injuries, a lot of fences torn down. We like to avoid that and say, hey, there's plenty there, they're not worth fighting for. There's another female out there. Don't fight. So we started genetic testing in 2007 to primarily look for cattle alleles in our population. And I don't want to talk about the genetics of that. I want to do an off-spin of it that when we got that data back, Mark Unger took the data and looked at who was doing the siring. And it's actually, we had 3 years of data at the time. I'm only going to show 2009 because it illustrates really well what's going on. So this is during the 2008 rut. We had 6 7-year-old bulls. 2 of them bred, had 1 calf each. 1 of them had 2 calves. 1 of them had 5 calves, and then we had 2 Casanovas in there that really wanted to spread the wealth around. So jump over to 6 years old, we only had 3. Likewise, 1 of them was doing a lot of breeding, the other 2 much less so. 5-year-olds, we had 8 of them, 7 of them sired a calf. Only 1 calf, 2 calves, 3 or 4. 4-year-olds, 6 of them, 2 of them did some breeding. 3-year-olds, we had 6 of them, 2 of them did some breedings, and some of these little teenagers that got in. And there's a lot of story about some of this stuff, so I want to talk about it a little bit. Just because you're a big bull, weighs 1,600 pounds or 1,700 pounds, don't mean you're going to be breeding. This attitude has a lot to do with it. We had an old bull that he had been a show bull, and he had just always been in a pen, and the females would flock to him and say, there you go. When he was donated to us, we turned him out here, and he says, fight? I ain't gonna fight for you. It ain't worth it. He never did any breeding. Because the other guys were much more aggressive. And he was just expecting it to be handed to him. It don't work that way. These guys expected it, or they had this attitude that says, it isn't worth it. I'd rather go back in the back 40, not have to deal with it. So they sired 1 or 2 of them. And also this is a little this doesn't necessarily reflect how many animals they bred. It only reflects how many calves lived to round up the next year. So they may have bred a lot of cows, but they just happened to be bad picks. They picked the cows that was going to get cold, or they picked cows that lost a calf. And so it underestimates really the breeding of what's going on. It only reflects the number of live calves that lived around them. But what's going on then is, and we don't have enough data to test yet, but I suspect if you go out there and look at the herd now, you'll see 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds, and maybe occasional few 5-year-olds hanging around with other females. And they will hang around with them all the time, all the way up to the rut. Come rut time, these bigger boys come in and say, okay, my turn. And I suspect what's going on is cows are coming to heat early. These guys are here, or they're around. These guys are not around. And then at the end of the breeding season, when these guys have said, okay, I'm going to the back 40 and stay away from them. These guys still hanging around, and they're there to clean up. And so that's why we're getting 2-year-olds doing breeding. The Dons are not fighting and competing with these guys for who's going to do the breeding. But there is some competition going on, and that competition is costly. These are the 2 animals that bred the 12 and 13 that had calves. And this was the weight change they had from one round up to the next. They lost weight. These guys that didn't do much breeding, they gained weight. The 6-year-old guys, they gained a little bit of weight. The 5-year-olds, they said, hey, I'm putting all my resources into beefing up, getting ready for next year. And so they were working on gaining weight. These guys that lost weight, tending, what happens is these old bulls, they start tending a female, starts coming in the heat, and they start tending it, and they follow it around and try and direct her where to go, where not to go. And it takes a lot of their time and energy. And they don't eat. They don't eat much. And so that's why they're losing weight, because they're expending so much energy on waiting around to the right moment when that female says, okay. Story of my life. Whoops. So just to kind of wrap this all up, so you know kind of where we stand at the hood, we have 295 animals in our hood right now. And that's assuming we got one animal that haven't, you know of any status on her yet, Tom?
No, I haven't
one
seen
gal that's probably not going to make it. We have a 9-year-old bull. We normally don't plan on 9-year-old bulls. He was supposed to be in code 2 years ago, but he didn't come in. He knew! Last year, last roundup, he came in, and then through a series of sorting pins, and he got sorted into the wrong pin and got out. So he gets to stay till he's 10, which will make him the oldest bull that we've ever had. So it'll be interesting to see how many calves he actually ends up siring as being the biggest. We had 2 8-year-olds left in the hood. These were going to be sold too, but we didn't sell them because they had infections when we ran them through. So we just gave them a shot of penicillin and said, we'll sell you next year. We sold 3 or 4 others in that age group. But this one guy had a big old swelling on his ear, and he came through that head chute. He hit the head chute. Cottage cheese everywhere. That was bad. Yeah, people no longer said, I don't want to stand around the chute anymore. And then we have one cow that was 7 years old. She's actually 6 at the time of this, is 7 now. That we didn't sell her because of infection too, so we gave her penicillin and kept her in food. And if she don't have a calf this year, she'll go next. So, wrapping this all up, we put a fence up to keep our animals in. Say, you gotta stay here or you're gonna die. So what did the animals do before then? Well, I can guarantee you, they didn't stay. They left. They're not gonna stay and eat this warm season grass that's in it. It's no quality at all. There's nothing there with what to eat. Thus, hey, we'll get into my stuff now. Get into burning. The necessity for burning the grassland to get rejuvenate the area, stimulate regrowth, and attract the animals back to the whole area. So it's a whole cycle of what was going on. So, had to read fast. That's it for me. A question or two? I got 2 minutes. Who is he? Go ahead.
Gene, how do you know which male services a female?
Well, that was from the genetics.
Just the genetics on
That was genetic. I tried watching it. And that takes a lot of time. But no, it's something, it's a tool that they have now that they can tell. And that's why we had 3 years of data that could not tell for the first year, because we'd already sold off all the old males, and so we didn't know how they would do it. We sold them. We never got a measure of the genetics. So we only got 2 years of good data. We've sent in 3 years now, and so when we get this other stuff back, but the first year came back, it had a lot of calves breeding, and it wasn't that the calves were doing breeding, because like I told the guy, like I told Mom, I said they're not one of the stilts. That it was this direct lineage that from the dads that had were no longer in the hood. They were closely associated. So from what the genetics that they were looking at, they couldn't tell the difference between what a calf. And they assumed it was a calf because they didn't have an adult to pair it up with. Tim.
I was out here in August, several years ago.
It was hot.
No, a storm was coming in. We were driving, nice to see a thunderstorm in August. We were driving up near the south gate, and going up the side of the slope. As the rain started, the clouds came in, the lightning. The bison were just running all over the place.
That's cool.
Well,
they do.
What is that?
Yeah. In fact, open house, which is 2 years ago, I did a tour for a group. It's the last tour of the day, and they shut everything down because a big storm was moving in. We got up to the last gate, went through the last gate, and they'd already pulled the gate people. And we got through, and I had to run the gate because I had an elderly shotgun rider. She couldn't remember the combination. And so, and so I got through the gate, and just as I got back in, I said, "This is it, folks. We're staying out here until it just raining like crazy, hard rain." But it was great. They got their money's worth for the tour because we started driving along the fence line, and the animals were spooked like crazy because of that hard rain, and they were running just the whole lickety-split and hood of them running right along the fence line. So I was driving down the road, and I know the speed limit's 15, but I was trying to keep up. And always going around them curves, 45 miles an hour, trying to keep up with those animals. And everybody's going, "Oh wow, this is really cool." But yeah, they do spooking, and then several years ago we had a hailstorm, and I was out here, and it just hailed like crazy. These big balls of hail hit the animals, and they said, "What the heck is this?" They hit me, and so they take off running like crazy. And it's really cool. If you haven't ever seen these animals run, don't try and get them to run. We don't want that. But it's really cool watching them run.
Thank you very much, Gene. You're always very educational and entertaining. And for your